Hey everyone, I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to all for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares and sends my way. From the heart, I thank each and every one of you. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype to this video to help the message get out a little bit more. Thank you. And before getting into what I want to talk to you about today, I also want to thank you for the great support and love everyone has been showing me in regards to the book I put out. In any way you might have showed it, through a comment, by buying the book, by reviewing the book. However, do know from the heart, muchas gracias. Well, everyone, on this one, I want to touch on personal experience, but it's going to circle around when I've been asked numerous of times, right? Which is to touch on one of the best times I've seen two individuals get down, boogie on each other. And I want to talk about one, right? Again, I'm not on here to glorify nor paint prison as, hey, this individual he's this and that and glorify it in any way. But, you know, I do understand the question because in prison, when you do so much time, you tend to see all this, right? Even if you don't do this as much time as I did, it just comes with the territory. But, to the surprising of many, probably, this one's going to circle around a skinhead and a norteño, you know, and that leads me to the next thing. With this, I'm speaking out of most sincere respect. I'm not leaning one way or the other, nor am I commenting on the politics behind the matter took place, right? I'm simply answering the question with the personal experience and how I seen it, right? So again, my utmost respects with this video to both sides, right? But anyways, for this, I'm gonna take you back to Vacaville, right? The riot happened when we basically got stomped on the yard by norteños, and we ended up going Willis to the hole. In Willis, for those that have been in Vacaville's hole, the cells are big, right? Well, bigger than normal holes cells, right? And the whole front wall is bars. And anyways, in front you got a little wall, and then halfway is a window that you can see out pretty much. And when the riot happened, to one side I had norteños, right? And again, even though we were just in a melee on the yard, and even though we lost, right? Well, what happens on the yard stays on the yard, right? Only pesetas do that, bring him back to the hole and start acting up, you know. And anyways, we got along pretty cool, in the sense of respect, you know. For like the next couple sales, there was nothing but norteños. So when we fished, we had to fish way down, and we never had a problem, right? On the contrary, if the line got stuck or anything, they would they would show respect, right? But anyways, Like I mentioned before, the first time I went out, it went all bad. Because committee tried to play me or try to put me in a spot, should I say, just because I'm from Sonoma County, right? And they probably thought I was going to admit to something, which I didn't. And I went out there, when they told me, so you could program with norteños when I was, you know, Tracy, a stabbing and assault. I was investigated. Solano, riot, and then you could say another riot. And then Vacaville, same thing. And then they still asked me. And anyways, I told them I could go out wherever you put me. I'm Mexican. So I went out and, you know, God helped me that day, to be sincere, because they would have started from the bottom tier up. I was the last one. I would have gotten handed to me straight up. But, for some reason, or I think they knew, they started from my cell down. So when the first norteño went out, it was boogie time. You know, no stopping. I mean, I was already going to get that right up, so might as well just take it to where it needs to be taken, right? And they knew because if it would have happened like out of the blues, right? They started from the third tier down. Then my neighbor would have been the first one out there, but it wasn't. It was an individual from the first tier, so they took me out first, and then on a norteño from. The first tier. And anyways, that's not important. When I went out there, there was already some wood, out there. For what reason, I couldn't really tell you. Amongst these woods, there was two skinheads, and the one I want to touch on today is from Shasta County. He was a skinhead from there, and he was tall, skinny, and all blasted. And he was back there in the hole. I don't know. I didn't ask. I was, you could say, wet behind my ears still. And I just kept to our gente. To be sincere, I knew there was a respect thing with us and them, but it was like, it was different. It was it was on and cracking, to be sincere, even from juvenile hall. And so I never asked. And me and Looney, this wood or skinhead, excuse me, we would end up after workout, keep hitting rutina, right? 1, 2 yards, we would play handball, and then sometimes be like, hey, let's hit it a little more. And we never got really personal, but you know, we got a lot more respectful than just good morning, good afternoon, and them type of thing. And right next door, it was two side by side yards, right? There's only a gated fence. You go in, and it's where they take off your handcuffs. It's a little squared room, and then you could go to either side, either to the right yard or the left yard, and there's only a gated fence in between, right? So all the norteños will come to one side, and then we will go to the next side. So, anyways, so the rutinas were being respected, right? At least in the sense of we wouldn't yell out like our count is. For those that have been there, know, we reach 10, and then puro, su, trece, rifa. That's normally how you count, right? In the whole. But there we wouldn't. We just counted like it was, 1, 2, 13, 14, and X, just out of respect. Same with them, I heard them in different spots, and their machine is, norteños have their thing where, who are we, and all that, and it wasn't being done there, you know. I'll just leave it like that. And my neighbor again was Wino from San Ho, you know, and he was a tall, healthy individual, right? And when I mean by healthy, you could tell he had size on him, right? And anyways, again, everything was being respected there, you know. Things happened from the gate the way they happened, but it was Kamiti's fault, and everyone that was back there, we all knew whose fault it was and how they were trying to okey doke me mainly, you know, and at the same time put them in the spot. Because imagine if they all would have gotten out than me, you know, they could have stomped me out completely, right? And they would have had them pick up a case or whatever. It was a setup though from Kabiri. And anyways, I believe it was with me though, because that happened and that's when they put Northern Hispanics, like I was a threat to Northern Hispanics. That's when they shot me to Ironwood, you know. And but anyways, fast forwarding to Tehachapi, A block. You know, I had already gone out to the 180, and we came back, and right there in A block, there was some norteños. They mostly had them over there on one block, right? It was that youth authority or that them offenders that were underage. They had them over there on one block, and they tended to keep one side with norteños. But there were some in A block, right? And just out of the blues, it was Wino, right? I didn't have him as a band neighbor. I had him next door, you know, we could talk through the door and stuff. So it was still all respect. Well, you know, Looney from Shasta County was there too, the skinhead. And I don't know what was his problem, right? Again, we don't, no Ramfla does that. No car does that. When you come out, you mad dog, you act a certain way. And I remember even one time Wino told me, like, hey, what's up with homeboy, you know? I told him, man, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know you guys' past, background, whatever. And because he would come out and flex, you know, and mad dog, to be sincere. And there was no need for that. There's a steel door right there, right? We don't do that. And no race in good standings does that, right? But anyways, as we're back there, though, you know, there's a CEO that he was funny, little short dude. For those that were into HB, will recall him. His last name started with an L. You know, I'll just say that because I don't know if he's still working in the system, but he was a kiss butt, straight up. When it came to the Pilis, you know, like Toro, Chino, and then they were there, you know, Turtle, all that went through there that were there. He was all, yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. What you need? TV, radios, uh, sheets, whatever it may be, right? But in A block, they act different. In general, though, with everyone, right? So, anyways, he was escorting the skinhead one day, and he must have caught on to it, right? That he left the skinhead and he came by to the side of the door and told Wino, hey, basically you got a problem with homeboy, you know, I could have these doors pop and I could let him know and you guys just handle it, right? And Wino said, if they open, they open, you know. He wasn't going to admit nothing to a Huda, which is understandable, right? And in conversation, he told me, and I told him just be trucha, you know, because mainly they know they pop these doors, what's going to happen. from your angle and his angle, and they're going to try to pin something. It's just never you go out and just knuckle up. Unas cachetadas joloteras to each other. Nah, you're going to go out there strapped and take advantage of the little time you have. And anyways, they both said, Simon, let's boogie. And he made it happen. One day he was in the tower, right? He racked the doors and hey, they got down in front of my cell and they were literally just the homie, I know, the norteño, excuse me, had had steel though, had metal stock in his piece, and the skinhead had plastic, and but they both had pieces. They didn't have no racers or nothing like that. They had pieces, righteous pieces on them. And in front of my cell, again, I was right next to Wino, and the skinhead came out. They opened up on him first, and he rest over here, so they would end up getting down there. And man, I was at the window, and they were whacking each other good. I'm talking about good. And within time, this thing happens within a minute or two. They don't, but when you're getting down, that minute or two seems it lasts forever. And within time, the skin starts buckling. You know, Wino would start getting the best of him, and for those that have been in one of them fights, it's not just your win. You're going at it with another individual with pieces, and you're plugging him. He's plugging you. It just takes for him to plug you in the wrong place for it to completely take your win. I don't know, but I've been in the situations where you're cool, you're going back and forth. The next thing you know, it just hits somewhere where you start feeling just everything's all that energy and everything starts coming out of you. At least in my case, my only thought was like, man, I gotta plug this fool to the point where I gotta drop him. But anyways, the skinhead, Looney would start buckling down, and Wino would end up going to town on him. And they would end up rushing up in there. The COL, would end up doing his ponchos, like he didn't know, start shooting. It was a mistake. However, he worked it out among the COs. But, again, without glorifying the norteño and that skinhead, they whacked each other till, they were hitting each other in the face, neck, torso, wherever it may hit. And it's just at the end, the norteño would end up getting the best, out of the skinhead. And even though he had better condition per se, because again, he was also tall, but he had more size. But then the skinhead was tall and skinny though. And I'm not taking nothing from him either, right? It's just how it goes though. When you go at it with pieces, it ain't really about what you could do. That piece is going to be the one that's going to call the fight, right? And anyways, that was one of the you could say best experience I seen of two individuals actually going at it and go at each other with the passion. And I understand, the norteños, they have a strict program, workout, and I'm pretty sure, if there's those crack, they have certain things in play. It's just norteños aren't everything. I'm just being sincere. We got a more relaxed program in the sense that we don't really keep point, but under our decision. It's not a mandatory thing. We like scope the yard, we scope who's on the yard. If they're norteños, of course, we pay attention. We start seeing who's programming this way, that way, and you start making out who's of importance. Same with woods and blacks. You gotta see which car's here, where's there, and just pay attention in case of a war. But I know norteños is mandatory for them to scope the yard and really analyze the threats, and they're more organized in that sense. you know and again, I'm not trying to sound in any way, shape, or form like I'm glorifying, nor am I trying to disrespect no one, right? But it's just facts are facts. you know I'm not saying we're not organized, because when it comes to war, everyone on our side is going to boogie. Is mandatory, and just like any other runfla, right? But anyways, on this one, I'll close here. This is just me sharing my experience to that one person that asked me, you know, what was one of the best fights I'd seen in there. This was definitely one of them. I seen others. For example, I seen a brother with a wood, but this was on the yard, and they were getting down, and it just never got to the point to see which one was getting the better of each other, of another, excuse me, because the yard would end up going up, as a car trip. But again, I'm not glorifying on this one. I'm just simply sharing. I know I've been asked a lot this question as to share an experience with cellies I had. And, if I'm sharing my story, I do want to respectfully share my full story, the questions you guys may have for me. With this said, I hope I made sense. Please stay true to yourself and loyal to loved ones. My respects to both factions I just spoke on.